morning. Good morning. I think that one of my most favorite things about this space is how it's connected with everything outside. We're not sitting in this passive box cut off from everything. We're in this open space that lets nature help with the interior decor every day. And I think she's done an incredible job this morning. Isn't it beautiful out there? And there's one of my peacocks in the window. He hears me. It's a beauty. I mean, where else can you see a peacock out the window? Yeah, he's pecking at his reflection at the moment. You know, because he's self-critical, aren't we all? Now, I have to admit that when I sat down, just like last week, I had no idea where I was going to go for this second talk of our 5-week series on anger. It seems like so much is happening, and it's happening so quickly and in so many areas of life right now that right when I think that I've got some direction on where to come from, something new happens and that direction gets pulled in a different direction. And by the time I have pulled up a chair to my table and started to type, my direction has changed direction too many times to untangle and sort into any semblance of logic. And this was the case for me, again, both this week and last. There is no lack of material related to both the inspiration of and possible solutions for anger, right? Between the local and global stages and all of the books that I have and everything on the internet, there's plenty to draw from, and yet I felt uninspired. I mentioned this to my son, Connor. He's our middle son, and he said, it's because you don't get angry very often, and when you do, you use it to go deeper. And I had to sit with that for a little while. I didn't want to ask him right away what he meant by you go deeper, Connor. Yeah. I wanted to try and see things from an outside perspective and maybe figure out where he was coming from. And I couldn't. I couldn't guess what he was observing. So I asked him, and he said, Mom, I can remember how if you got even a little bit angry, you would immediately apologize and then explain why it wasn't okay. And he'd say, no, it's okay. And I'd say, no, it's not, because. He said, you taught me that listening and figuring out my feelings was the priority, and that it's never okay to lose love. And now you just don't really get angry. I do sometimes, but not very often. And that's where I want to come from today. It's never okay to lose love. As most of you know, within the last few months, I kind of inherited the Course in Miracles group that meets here Tuesday nights. I inherited it, and then I set about getting Phil Zeroni ready to kind of take it over. But I've stuck around because I've really enjoyed exploring it this time. We've been approaching it in a way that's different from any that I've seen before. And we're making it make sense to our lives. And if you're familiar with the Course, you know that the language can be really difficult to understand really often, right? You have to pull it apart, and even then, sometimes it doesn't make sense. If you are not familiar, come see me after the service. I will hand you a book, read a paragraph, and then tell me what it means. It's a challenge. To put it plainly, it's a lot. But it holds a lot of wisdom if you take the time to figure it all out. And one of the fundamental points is that only one thing is real, and that thing is love. And the next point is that anything which is not love is fear. I stumbled upon, you know what? Give me a minute. Now, we humans, we have all kinds of other words that we like to use for the ways that we feel, right? It's angry, it's sad, it's emotional, it's All of these negative, give me some more. Disappointed, anxious, resentful. It's all fear. Believe it or not, it's all fear. And we figured that out recently in A Course in Miracles. But the Course says that no matter how angry or vain or boastful or whatever else is going on, whatever else something may appear to be, if it's not love, it's fear. So I found this blog post a while back, and it's called Anger is Love. And it's like really random. I found it out of nowhere. And it's by executive life coach Devin Martin, whom I'd never heard of before. And it got me thinking about things really differently. Because if anger is love, as he says, if it can move out of being a presentation of fear into a catalyst toward love, well, that kind of changes the whole game, doesn't it? Yeah? He says, I used to be so angry, and there's 6 O's after that. So he was incredibly angry. He says, I was angry at the state of the world. I was angry at you. I was angry at myself. Now anger arises so rarely, I miss it. And when it comes, I cherish it as a gift. What changed? I went deeper into the anger and felt its roots. Where does your anger come from? Do you embrace it? How do you act when this emotion arises? Do you become aware of anger early enough to choose clarity over rage? Can you smile while you're angry? Anger comes from love, he says. You cannot get angry unless you care about something. It is impossible to feel anger without love. Understanding this on a deep level and developing the ability to witness this within yourself will change your relationship to anger completely. Your anger is there to serve you. It is there to serve others. It exists because you care. All those resources that I put money into, nobody said that better than the guy in that post that randomly landed in front of my eyeballs on the computer one day. And I hear that. I hear what he said. We're angry, so clearly we care about something. We wouldn't argue if we didn't have something that was valuable to us to defend, right? But how do we, in the moment, how do we identify what it is that we care about so that we can express that caring rather than indulge the destructive force that anger can be? A recent Quora question I found posed exactly that when it asked, what moment turned your anger or hatred into love? And this lady with a beautiful first name, her name is Ankita, Ankita, Ankita Menon. She shared her beautiful moment of realization. She said, the chocolate bar was gone. The markers were gone. The paper was gone too, along with the tape and the crayons. I walked into my room to find it turned upside down. Obviously the work of my little brother. My king-size Twix bar that had been part of a birthday gift from my friend was gone. I'd been saving it to eat the next day, the day of my actual birthday. Red spots clouding my vision. I yelled my little brother's name as loud as I could. He scampered up to my room, wide-eyed and frightened, awaiting my scolding. Why would you eat my chocolate and take all my supplies? I yelled at him, head boiling. He, around 5 years old at the time, looked to be on the verge of tears. Just wait one more day, I promise, okay? He said before he ran out of my room. Don't expect me to ever talk to you again, I yelled after him, slamming the door. The next morning, I woke up to a small, warm hand shaking my shoulder. Happy birthday, exclaimed my little brother, holding out something towards me. It was a rectangular-shaped package, in quotes, if you could call it that, gift wrapped in pieces of printer paper, messily colored in and taped together. There was a card attached to it. I unwrapped the present to find my Twix bar sitting there untouched. I'm sorry I took your Twix bar. I really wanted to get you a present, but I only had 5 cents, so I had to take your chocolate and give it back to you instead. He looked up at me, 100% pure innocence and love. I read his letter and found all of my previous anger melting away and said, even when you yell, you love me. Ever since, I've tried my best to be the sister that he thinks I am, and I love him with 100% of my heart, even when I'm furious with him. Isn't that beautiful? I had to bring that in because I thought it was great. And I can absolutely agree that children are our greatest teacher when it comes to lessons like these, right? But what do you do when the emotional leaning toward anger is present and the others in the situation aren't adorable, well-intended little types, right? What do you do when our egos start hollering and our fists ball up and there's nothing happening to stop us from forgetting that love is the only thing that's real? How do we take the lesson from that initial angry emotional response and come from love before we start yelling? How do we see the truth of others' intentions and learn that lesson early on so that we don't have to feel regret for the way that we responded? Well, there's a number of sources to turn to here, and I'm going to start with one of my favorites, and that's Thich Nhat in his book, Anger. Beginning on page 93, he says, you have to listen to everyone, regardless of the person or the situation or your personal position or judgment. You must listen with compassion. He says, if you keep compassion alive in you while listening, then anger and irritation cannot arise. Otherwise, the things he says, the things she says will touch off your irritation, anger, and suffering. Compassion alone can protect you from becoming irritated, angry, or full of despair. So you want to act as a great being while listening because you know that the other person suffers so much and needs you to step in and rescue them. But you have to be equipped with something to do the job. When firemen come to help put out a fire, they have to have the right equipment. They must have ladders, water, the kind of clothing that can protect them from fire. They have to know many ways to protect themselves and put the fire out. When you listen to someone who suffers, you step into a zone of fire. There is a fire of suffering, of anger burning in the person that you're listening to. If you are not well equipped, you cannot help, and you might become a victim of the fire in the other person. This is why you need equipment. Your equipment here is compassion, which can be nourished and kept alive with the practice of mindful breathing. Mindful breathing generates the energy of mindfulness. Mindful breathing keeps your basic desire alive, the desire to help the other person speak out. When the other person speaks, his words might be full of bitterness, condemnation, and judgment. These words might touch off suffering in you. But if compassion is kept alive in you through the practice of mindful breathing, you are protected. You are capable of sitting there and listening for an hour without suffering. Your compassion will nourish you, knowing that you are helping the other person suffer less. Play the role of bodhisattva. Compassion is born from happiness and also from understanding. When compassion and understanding are kept alive, you are safe. What the other person says will not make you suffer, and you can listen deeply. You really listen when you do not have the capacity to listen with compassion. You cannot just pretend you are listening. The other person will realize that you are full of ideas about suffering, but you don't really understand him or her. When you have understanding, you can listen with compassion. You can listen deeply, and the quality of this listening is the fruit of your practice. So what does he mean by mindful breathing? He means focusing only on what is being said and your breathing. Because we can only truly focus on one thing at a time with clarity, right? We can focus on all kinds of things in tiny increments, in fragments, and we think that that's multitasking. No, you're paying attention in little bitty bursts to individual things. We can peripherally remain aware of some of what's going on around us, but we can only really focus on one singular thing at once. By focusing only on what is being said and the awareness of your breathing, you shut down that impulse to turn into your mind and indulge your thoughts and judgments surrounding whatever they're saying. Okay, you're not listening to part of what they're talking about and then stopping partway through to formulate what you want to say next, right? Because that's what we do. And that's why a whole lot of situations which could have been resolved by a simple connected conversation rather than an emotional division stemming from anger and unfocus end that way. We need to listen fully with compassion and breathe. Don't think, don't reply, don't judge. Simply hear. And this is from page 38 of a book called Anger, the Misunderstood Emotion by Carol Tavris. It's the opposite approach, but oddly, it's one which a lot of Freudian devotees would probably jump right on. Listen to this and tell me whose approach might inspire more love. Thich, Nhat, Hanh, or Sigmund Freud. She said, sitting in a cafe one afternoon, I heard the following conversation between two women. Woman A, you'll feel better if you get your anger out. Woman B, anger. Why am I angry? Woman A, because he left you, that's why. Woman B, left me? What are you talking about? He died. Woman A, yes, but to your unconscious, it's no different than an abandonment. Underneath, you're blaming him for not keeping his obligation to love you forever. Woman B, that might have been true if I was 10 years old, Margaret, but I'm 42. And we both knew he was dying and we had time to make our peace. I don't feel angry, I feel sad. I miss him. Woman A, why are you so defensive? Why are you denying your true feelings? Why are you afraid of therapy? Woman B, Margaret, you are driving me crazy. I don't feel angry, damn it. Woman A, smiling, so why are you shouting? That's the problem. She notes, it's not easy to argue with Freudian devotees because disagreement is usually taken as denial or blocking. If you do feel the emotion in question, you support the theory. And if you do not feel the emotion in question, you also support the theory because now you are demonstrating reaction formation or repression, right? I imagine that those practicing Freudian methods find themselves surrounded by a whole lot of angry behavior because, boy, if I was woman B, I might have conveniently come up with an excuse to leave that cafe in short order, just to avoid having to hang out with Margaret a moment longer. How frustrating that must have been, right? The thing is, though, as I write these talks and I go about the business of living in between, I try to draw from what's happening and really help it stick to situations that I hear about folks trying to navigate. And the stuff that I hear people trying to navigate lately has them feeling really huge, overwhelming ways. I know that local events have fingers pointing and warriors whispering, and politics have people in all kinds of different emotional states, from abject fear and despair to anger and rage to hopelessness in some cases. And it's really, really complex, which makes it really difficult for me to speak to powerfully because there's so much involved. I can speak to truth, though. The truth is that no matter what your mind is telling you to focus on at any given moment, there's a real state that you can touch into right now. You ask why I'm not caught up in all the worry and fear and all of that emotion which seems to be inherent in our world today. And it's because that fear isn't here right now where I am. The fear's in the future, and it's only a possibility. I react to now, only now, not 5 minutes ago, not 5 minutes in the future. Right now, I am in a place that is essential to my happiness. And I'm with so many of you incredible, beautiful people. I am warm and I am fed and I feel good. And none of that makes me feel anything other than loved and whole. I am not experiencing any of the what-if scenarios which may or may not come from whatever event appears to be shaping things. And there's no way for me to know which what-if scenario might actually happen. So why would I spend a moment worrying about it? In the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 6, Jesus is quoted as saying, "Who is among you who by worrying can add 1 cubit to his stature?" And in The Science of Mind on page 334, Ernest Holmes said, "The mystics have taught that there is but one ultimate reality, and that this ultimate reality is here, now, if we could but see it. The great mystics have been illumined. They have seen through the veil of matter and perceived the spiritual universe. They have been taught that the kingdom of God is now present, but needs to be realized, and they have apparently sensed that this kingdom is within. What's actually happening now is more significant to my happiness and the happiness of those immediately surrounding me. And as Jesus said all throughout the Bible, over and over again, in all kinds of different situations, it shall be as you believe. When you indulge in the what-ifs in your mind, you give credence to the possibility of any number of them happening. Your thoughts and beliefs shape your experience. And it is my most sincere wish that you will learn to join me here in now more and more often, so that fear and anger become strangers to you. I've walked a long way to get here, and I know that it might not feel easy, so let's meet halfway. Last week, we sought to heal pain from the masculine and feminine, to heal that personal and generational pain, which may have quietly been holding us in destructive and emotional states of mind. And this week, I would like us to shift anger into love and create beautiful movement toward change. I'd like to lead you in a guided meditation exercise to help transform any feelings of anger currently in your awareness into a movement toward growth, which can only be achieved through love. So please sit comfortably and allow your body to relax. Notice that you're in a safe, serene space, surrounded by people who are loving. Recognizing that safety is present for you now. If you feel comfortable and you haven't done so yet, please close your eyes. As we get started, let's take a couple of those deep, mindful breaths we were just told about. Let your breathing move you into deeper relaxation. So just take a deep breath in and out. In and out. Now that you're fully relaxed, allow yourself to bring up a situation that you're currently experiencing some feelings of anger about. Bring up the situation, not the emotions that you've connected to it. We're just observing, we're not engaging. Our relaxation is not affected by this observation. This situation you're looking at may be with another person, or you might be angry at a bigger situation, maybe even on the world level, or you may be angry at something with yourself. So just identify what you're currently most angry about and allow that image to come up. And now let's take all of the people out of the equation so that it's just the situation itself. So in other words, if you're angry at yourself, you don't direct any focus or feelings of anger toward yourself. Just direct it at the situation that has you feeling that way toward yourself. If somebody said something that's having you feeling upset, don't direct feelings of anger toward the person, but toward those words being said and the feelings they evoke in you. And now allow yourself to bring all of your anger together. Take all of those feelings that you have about the situation and gather them up. And you may find yourself feeling hotter, as if the anger is a fire in your belly. Fire is strong, but there's not a lot of focus in it. And this makes it unpredictably destructive. So instead, allow yourself to shift that gathered hot anger into something that's a lot more focused, like a laser beam. Okay, this is a laser beam that can destroy any situation, any obstacle you'd like to destroy. And remember what I said earlier, let's just look at the situation that has you feeling angry, not anybody who's involved in it. Now imagine that situation like an obstacle that's in your path. You're walking along and there's this huge, cold block of ice sitting right in the middle of the path, interrupting your journey and cutting you off from others. And now allow yourself to visualize that laser of anger. Feel the anger cooling and settling into calm. And as you settle into calm, observe how the light from that laser gets brighter and stronger. The more calm and peaceful you become, the brighter and more powerful it becomes. Now, maintaining that calm, direct that brilliantly powerful beam toward the situation, toward whatever it is keeping you trapped, shackled, cut off, or however you're currently feeling. And as you're doing that, just notice how the situation itself is being destroyed. That laser of your focused emotion is breaking apart all of the chaos and darkness, and the pieces slowly drift apart, only to come back together, reformed into something beautiful. Allow all of the former pieces of that situation, which once had you so upset, to come back together to represent the truth which underlie all the noise it once represented. Allow it to become reformed as the beautiful vision you would like to see realized. And as this new vision becomes clear, recognize that your anger has melted away. Recognize that the anger you transformed into power by choosing calm and peace has now become love through the envisioning of the beautiful new reality of the situation. And as you stand in this new place of strength and calm, you notice that there is someone walking toward you. Someone dressed strangely whom you don't recognize. Whatever this person looks like to you, realize that this is the representation of war. To the Romans, it was known as Mars. To the Greek, Aries. And this person can help you when there's a battle going on within you. This being can help you recognize that when you're allowing anger to steal your power by distracting you from the clarity of truth in any situation, you are not seeing clearly. So allow yourself to meet the eye of Mars, of Aries, in front of you. And as your eyes meet, you're surprised to notice that instead of the heightened states of emotion you might expect from connecting with a being representing war, you discover yourself observing and experiencing total peace and calm. Notice that this peace and calm gives you strength and confidence and courage. And recognize that you can do a lot more than you perhaps give yourself credit for. Know that you can use this strength and confidence and courage constructively as love. An interesting thing about the mythology surrounding Mars is that while he was often known for his primary designation as the god of war, his origin was actually as an agricultural guardian. So he helped crops grow. He fed, watered, and nurtured them. He was not a destroyer, but a cultivator of abundance and bounty. And that same cultivator of abundance and bounty exists in you. It always has. That same power of transformation through love has always been a part of you. You have a heart and feelings and emotions and thinking, mind and intellect. So you recognize that from now on, any impulse of anger will bring your awareness to false feelings of a momentary, temporary separation from oneness, which you will immediately and easily move you toward conscious reconnection to all that is. Realize that there is never any real separation from oneness. Your connectedness has only been hidden from you by the noise and the chaos brought by anger. But now you see the truth that power comes from peace, calm, and the loving formation of the reality we wish to experience. Now revisit that beautiful vision you created through that transformation of your anger into loving movement toward change. Observe that there are no feelings separate from love in connection with that situation anymore. Know with gratitude that you now have the power to transform all anger into that same loving movement. And when you feel that solidly formed within you and you're comfortable, return your mind to present awareness. Wiggle your toes. Wiggle your fingers. Notice how you're sitting. Notice the sounds around you and the climate. Come back to present. And whenever you're ready, just gradually open your eyes. You see, together, we can create the world that we choose. Let's choose. So let it be.